Hello and welcome to the One Stop Co-op Shop, your one stop for co-op news, reviews, and playthroughs. I'm Peter, and today we are reviewing GenCon. What's up, Jerry?
Hi, everybody.
We're not really reviewing GenCon. This is going to be at the end of a podcast, and I should say hi to Mike, but I'm not. This is going to be at the end of the podcast, so this whole intro doesn't mean anything anyway. What's going on, Mike?
Apparently, I don't mean anything either. That's fair.
Well,
No.
I mean, of course not.
You mean everything. You mean everything.
Ooh.
So I did earlier today post the raw footage of our original podcast, which is 2 hours of unedited wonderfulness. That
Man,
like
you're just using all the buzzwords that make me feel uncomfortable right now.
I
Raw footage, unedited.
I mean, I guess
right.
it was audio, so I guess there was no footage. It was just foot. I don't know. There's no age
Hey,
involved. Wait, what?
That was well behaved.
Wait, on that last podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, you had been drinking that night. That was good stuff. So yes, if
That was
you were in rare
making
form, but
sense.
you had a lot of good stuff. You had a lot of good stuff. Trust me, it's going to be very unedited anyway, because I'm going to have to do like 3 hours of editing. Edit 3 hours of stuff, which probably means 6+ hours of editing for me. So yeah, don't expect a whole lot of editing for this next podcast. Let me tell you. Although all this won't be in there. So there's that. All right. So if you haven't heard that, the whole point was you can go back and check that out, or just listen to our podcast on Sunday and you will get all of it. So we discuss basically every day at the con, and we talk about different games we saw, stuff like that. So today we're just going to be doing a wrap up, both for that podcast, but also for the convention itself, and talking about what we really enjoyed from Gen Con this year. So anybody want to start out? Final
Well,
thoughts?
since it was Mike's first one, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I feel like maybe I said some of this. So Peter, you can just have fun editing in, or just double me up. Make me sound like an idiot. Make me repeat myself multiple times.
That's the goal. Is really
Yeah.
to double you down.
Yeah, so this was my first Gen Con, and for like context, the only, I guess, big other convention I've been to is PAX Unplugged. I've been there, twice now? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So this was a lot larger than PAX. It sprawled more than PAX. Like PAX had us go to the one place, and that's PAX. Whereas there was a stadium. There was like a block party outside of the stadium, and I was meeting publishers in multiple hotels that were like connected by sky bridges.
It always seems weird when you get like a publisher invite to a meeting, and it's like room 302. Meet us in there. It's like, I'm gonna bring a friend.
About, like being like the Hyatt Regency, the da. So
I know, but it's always weird
right.
when it's like a random hotel room number instead of some
like it makes it
professional.
sound like you're visiting their hotel room where they sleep or something. But no, that is not the case, by the way.
Right? No. It is
They rent
random
rooms.
hotel room numbers, but they're like conference rooms like on the third floor or whatever. So yeah, it's weird, but they do just sometimes say like Hyatt Regency, room 302. I'm like, okay, I'll see you there. I'm bringing a friend.
But yeah, so it was larger than PAX. It was more sprawling, which I would say was generally a net negative for me. I kind of like the simplicity of just being like in one place and not having to kind of search around as much. Honestly, the vendor hall and like the play areas was very similar, even like in how it was set up, just at a grander scale and more crowded, which again, I would say is a net negative for me in comparison. Clearly the travel time between PAX and Gen Con is a net negative because it's 3 times as long, at least each way we drive.
Although that's not the
big
case
thing-
for everyone, obvious, right?
Well, this is my personal, did you not ask for my experience? Like, what do
Yes.
you want me to say?
Yeah.
But yeah, the biggest thing, and this is clearly we are in a unique position, which is different than like the average person going to PAX or Gen Con. And Jerry, I know you've said this kind of thing to me before in the past as well. A lot of there's sort of like 3 types of new game at PAX or Gen Con. There's like the games that are like just about to release or releasing. There's the games that are releasing soon, and there's the games that you can like kind of see like early versions of. For the first category, 9 times out of 10, we've already like seen and played the game. So it's exciting for a lot of people, but not exciting for us because we've already like kind of experienced it in early coverage of it. And then the stuff that's way delayed, you know, that we're not going to see in forever, it doesn't really matter necessarily if I see it at Gen Con or PAX. Like, it probably won't be done by PAX if it was a Gen Con. So I guess there's like this kind of like, you know, just right kind of middle ground of game where it's actually like exciting to see it at Gen Con. Or, I don't know, something I will say like Sky Team that I got from Scorpion Mask. I think it was for sale at Gen Con, and I got like a review copy right then. And it's one of my favorite recent games now that I've been playing it. So like that was cool, but certainly by and large, I don't feel like I'm seeing more new or special games at Gen Con. So the only benefit is more people are there when I kind of like look back on my experience at the con. And that's more people in two ways. More people in terms of like which publishers are there, because there are some publishers and designers that I like touch base with and hung out with that I probably would not have like seen at PAX. But also there were more like content creators, and I had a great time hanging out with a lot of content creators, meeting people that I hadn't met before, and like Discord members, like there were more of them there. So it was like better from a social standpoint, but also worse because it's so crowded you can't find anybody. At least at PAX, I feel like I'm constantly running into people that I want to see. I did not feel that way at Gen Con. If I didn't like have some way to contact you and find like say we are meeting here, a meetup wasn't going to happen. So yeah, overall, will I go to PAX again? I can't say for sure. It'll probably depend more on like, Gen Con. Will I go to Gen Con again? It'll probably depend more on like how Peter and my games go, and like if we have games to show off and that kind of stuff with our own publishing efforts. In terms of like media coverage and playing new games, I don't know if I need it. And also, I don't know if my wife will let me go to 2 big cons a year. So if it was between the two, certainly PAX would be my pick 9 times out of 10. I don't mean this to be negative. I hope it doesn't sound negative. It's just like in comparison, I don't know if the pros outweigh the cons, but I still had a great time, and I overcame the kind of anxiety and confusion of like the space and everything pretty quickly. And the map was helpful. So,
I mean, yeah, that goes away after your first time going. Like your second year, you'll not necessarily that all the publishers are in the same place, but the confusion over where the hotels are and stuff like that becomes way better after the first year. I'll go next because I think Jerry's going to be the most positive here of all three of us. I don't think I'm quite as negative as Mike, even though I always say how much I hate Gen Con. There's like, I mean, that's more joking than anything just because I know Jerry likes it so much. But compared to the other big cons in the US, Origins and PAX, it is my third of 3. I do prefer the other 2 better. I think PAX has kind of overtaken Origins at this point, just because they're, and like Mike said, for me, and so this is all personal for all of us, of course, but for me, it's all about meeting people and seeing people. And for that, Gen Con's the best as far as like all the one-stop co-op shop groups there, a bunch of people from our Discord. You don't get that at the other 2 conventions as much, but there are more people I know at PAX, so I like that. I do find the space more cozy and comforting. You just tend to run into people you know more. You don't have to go looking for them. There are people I knew that were at the show that I just never got to meet up with because I never ran into them. Now, you would randomly run into somebody like in the food court or wherever else, and so it was like, okay, that part was cool, but it just seems like at PAX, you're constantly running into people you know. Yeah, so for me, I like the show a little bit smaller. I don't like the commitment of having to buy tickets ahead of time. You know, I know Jerry doesn't like lines, but I would rather wait 5 minutes in a line to do a demo. If I know the demo's at 3 and I show up at 2:55 and I got to wait a couple minutes, I'd rather do that and hope to get in rather than having to pay money ahead of time and then be stressed out that I got to get there on time or whatever. Like if something's running over, I don't want to have to hurry over to the next thing because I already paid for these tickets. So there are definitely people that are going to like that, and there are people that don't. And for me, it's just Gen Con is just a lot. And this was the biggest year ever for Gen Con. It was even bigger than the pre-pandemic years. So, I mean, there was some of that, but it didn't feel that much bigger. I think they did a good job of spreading out where the people were. I think there were definitely more people in the stadium this time. I had certainly been in the stadium in the past where there was almost nobody in there. You know, the open gaming area wasn't very full. Like some of those tables weren't very full. I feel like they put more stuff there that people wanted to go to. So that was kind of cool. But overall, Like, if you want to see a spectacle, Gen Con's for sure the one to go to. For me, I prefer something a little bit smaller and more intimate. Jerry.
All right. Well, so I'm going to differ from them a bit. And I think Peter kind of summed it up a little bit with the fact that Gen Con is a spectacle. And I enjoy the spectacle aspect of it. I mean, comparing, I've only been to one Origins, and it was, I think, in 2021, and it was sort of pandemic-y. So it wasn't really, I don't think I gave it a fair shake based on that experience.
No,
but
for sure.
Comparing it to PAX Unplugged, there's two big conventions throughout the year where games typically get released, and that's Gen Con and Essen, and not PAX Unplugged. So you rarely see a whole lot of new stuff at PAX Unplugged. Now, that was a little bit different last PAX U because Cephalo Fair announced the Gloomhaven RPG at PAX Unplugged. But that was the only major release that I recall seeing at PAX Unplugged. Whereas at Gen Con, there's all kinds of new stuff. And while I understand Mike's perspective where, if you're getting review copies and, in touch with publishers ahead of time, you might already have seen or played or at least know of a lot of these games. I don't get review copies. I tend to focus a little bit more on competitive games. Gen Con has a lot more new releases and sort of first time to see things. So there's a much more, a bigger spectacle aspect of it. And while Gen Con... Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want to interrupt you just on that thought. So Essen is right before PAX. You haven't seen a lot of those Essen games yet, so a lot of those do release in the United States at PAX. That is, and those are more competitive, more traditional European style games. So I'm actually surprised that you don't find a lot new at PAX every year.
Well, when I've been to PAX, especially this last one, I was pretty disappointed in the vendor hall. I didn't think there was much of anything very interesting going on in the vendor hall at PAX U last time. As a matter of fact, I think they spread the booths apart a little bit further and had more room in between them because they didn't have quite as many vendors as they might have liked. It's certainly not as packed in as Gen Con, either from a booth perspective or from a crowd perspective. But that's true. Essen does happen typically, I think, late October, maybe early November, and PAX is typically very early December. In some cases, you might see some of the Essen releases at PAX, but again, those were Essen releases. Those weren't PAX U releases. So if they had been released already, they might have already been available, at your local game store or, online to already purchase or at least see reviews and videos on. Whereas Gen Con, you might be seeing things for the first time.
So you like the surprise of it, like so you're sad. You're sad that Fantasy Flight. You're sad that Fantasy Flight isn't doing its like big announcement thing that they used to do every year, and stuff. So that was the part of it you really like. Yeah, I mean, they might be doing announcements there, but I don't even know where they're doing announcements. Like I don't know how you find out what is new there or what just came out. I guess you're gonna have to go like Board Game Geek while you're there to figure out like what's new at the place you're at. Like
Board Game Geek publishes a list from publishers of all. I mean, you guys had Flame and Fang on that list, right?
Yep.
I went through that list a couple times, marked off the ones that I was interested in taking a look at, and then saw some of them. Which this Gen Con was a little bit unusual for me in that I did not spend a whole lot of time in the vendor hall at all. I spent most of my time just hanging out or, hanging out with people or playing a few games or a couple of events. In previous Gen Cons, I'd spent a lot more time in the vendor hall. As far as Gen Con being more sprawling, that is definitely true, but I also like the more open nature of Gen Con than PAX. PAX, you have to go through a metal detector to go in. You can only go in certain entrances, and leaving and come back is a little bit of a pain. Versus Gen Con, you just walk in, wander around, walk out, however you feel. You want to go to the Gen Con block party, which is something else that PAX does not have. See all the different food trucks or just hang out. I think Gen Con's a little bit more conducive to that. It being more crowded does make it less conducive to finding people that you actually want to hang, your friends that you want to hang out with, unless you schedule a time and a place. But I sort of like Gen Con for those aspects. Gen Con's also 4 days versus PAX essentially 2.5, and PAX opens opens way late. It opens at like 10 or something for the convention. None of the events start before 10. Whereas Gen Con is pretty much 24/7, well, 24/4, I guess, for the events, which there's just a lot more going on, and I feel like you have more variety and pick as far as things to do.
Yeah, that's true. You have the demo hall open before the vendor hall. I think that's true at PAX too, though. I think
no, you can't go in before 10.
not even to the demo part of it, where they're doing like
so. Well, they might have changed it because I didn't try last time, but before then you could not. You had to go into the queue room.
Well, yes. No, last year was different. Oh, that's right. You weren't there last year. No, last year was different.
No, I was there last year. 2 years ago, I was not.
Okay. I feel like there was no queue room last year.
Like, there was no queue room last year. That is correct.
Yeah. So you could walk all the way up to the vendor hall, which is past all those demo tables and stuff. So I do think they're trying to get better. But the thing to remember about PAX is it's still a pretty new convention.
No, you had to queue up waiting to get into the vendor hall. All that area was a queue. You just had to stand or sit on the concrete floor.
Yeah.
So that all right. So you mentioned this, Peter. I'm gonna rail on this a little bit. So Gen Con, for those that don't know, you sign up or you try to get events beforehand, and most of them cost at least $2 to get a ticket for. Some of them are free, but you put together a wish list and you try to get the events you want, and hopefully you do. With PAX, there are no like tickets. You just have to line up, or at least in the past, you just had to line up for these events. So I know like the first and second time I went to PAX, you end up sitting on the floor in a line for 45 minutes just doing nothing. I mean, you can meet people and talk to people, but you're not actively doing anything like gaming, or you're just sitting there. And, I'm in my 40s. I'm not really a big fan of, taking my limited leisure time and going and sitting on a floor for 45 minutes waiting to get into an event. Now, last year they did improve a bit, speaking of PAX, in that you could sign up for events like the morning of. So it would like open up at 7 a.m. or something like that, and it'd be a mad dash to try to get limited spots for an event. But that was still better as far as I'm concerned. It's not so much whether you can get into the events or not, because you can get, shut out of an event in Gen Con or PAX. It's really just being able to plan your day a little bit better. So at least now with this new system at PAX and with Gen Con, ahead of time whether you're going to be able to go to an event or not. Whereas in the past with PAX, you'd line up and hope you weren't too far back in the line, which I found incredibly annoying. But it looks like they're making steps to sort of limit that in the future. So apparently they're improving. But overall, I still prefer Gen Con, just like you said, for the spectacle. There's a sheer number of people that, I'm not normally going to see. I get to see, like Steve and Colin. So I'd met Steve and Barrett before, but I don't think I'd met Colin. So that was really nice. Whereas PAX, it's a much smaller convention, and while I do, run into a whole bunch of people I know, it's much more limited than Gen Con.
Cool. Well, that's our thoughts on Gen Con, but let's talk about our game of the show. Let's end on a positive note. Mike, did you have a favorite game you played at Gen Con? Mike with his big eyes. For those of you who are on the podcast, he was clearly talking to somebody. I totally caught him off guard.
No, it's fine. I was talking to my wife, and everything's fine. Favorite game? I gotta pick one.
Yeah, or one that stuck out, that's memorable to you. What is it? 2 weeks since Gen Con now. 2 weeks later, what sticks out to you from Gen Con?
Okay, I'm gonna do two. I'm gonna cheat. I mean, because I'll pick ones that I actually have and have gotten to play more, which again is a benefit of the covers that we do. So I know it doesn't apply to everybody, but both 20 Strong from Chip Theory Games, which is their upcoming dice one that hopefully is delivering soon. It's pretty much, well, actually the copy they gave me was not entirely done. They had fixed some things with dice and stuff. So I imagine that means that the actual final version of the game is still going to be a little bit, but that one's great. I know Peter's borrowed my copy and is playing that now. We're going to do a podcast of that sometime soonish. And then the other one I'll mention is Sky Team. I just did a review of that recently. That's a 2-player cooperative dice placement game. So I guess I'm all about dice for Gen Con. But it's excellent. It's easy enough at the lowest levels that I was able to teach my kids and they had a good time. But it's super hard if you like go into the tougher scenarios and they add like a lot of modular things. It's just an awesome game. So those are like the two that stick out at me. I mean, there are other ones that I love, but I don't have them yet, so I wouldn't put them as my top. Like the Chip Theory, Elder Scrolls, and Horror on the Orient Express. Like those are amazing looking, but you know, I don't want to call them my top game at the con until I can actually like play them more than half a game, which is what I got of each of them.
So I will say, going back a week when we left the con, though, I think you would have said Horror on the Orient Express at the time, because you did play enough of it to get a good feel for it. You were super excited for it at the time. Now, you know, with the chance to play these other ones more, your mind might have changed since then. But I remember how excited you were about that one and how much you talked about that one.
If you want to say like game of the con for hype,
anticipation, go for anticipation.
Then no, it's Elder Scrolls. I love Horror on the Orient Express, but Elder Scrolls is going to have a lot more variety in play. Horror on the Orient Express I'm super excited for, but it's the kind of thing I would bust out like, you know, maybe every month or two. Whereas Elder Scrolls I could see like becoming kind of like a more lifestyle, like play it all the time, keep it for years and years kind of game.
Well, yeah, you said it might replace Too Many Bones for you, so that's a big deal.
Yeah. I don't know even how to sell the trove chest if that's what happens.
Well, you got to run a forklift, right?
Yeah. Well, hey, I did lift it in that one video back when, partially. Of course, now there's more stuff in it since then, so it's added a lot of weight.
Yeah, plus you're older.
Yeah, that's true.
Those muscles have atrophied.
Nice. So my game of the con was Unmatched. What was it called, Jerry? Do you remember the...
Tales to Amaze.
Tales to Amaze.
Unmatched Adventures. Tales to Amaze.
Yeah, so that was the co-op version of Unmatched. I really enjoyed that. In fact, I enjoyed it so much, I had been debating buying a couple of the Marvel Unmatched sets, and I did end up buying them at the con because I was so excited by the co-op mode. I was like, oh, I want to play these Marvel heroes against, you know, this cooperative version when it comes out. So, and they were actually ones Jerry didn't own. I made sure ahead of time I did not duplicate purchases. So Jerry owns like literally everything Unmatched except for the 2 sets that I own.
Now I do, yes. Yeah, I got the last set that I don't own.
Yeah. So, but I did play that with my son since the convention as well, and I really actually am enjoying Unmatched more. I think they've done a lot with the system to make the heroes more unique, more differentiated. You know, when they first started out, they probably, you know, as with every game, they start out safe. Conservative, but as they've gone along, they've really done some neat things. And some of the Marvel heroes were like, I loved some of the mechanics that they did, which I hadn't seen before in any of the other sets. So good on you, Restoration Games. I really am enjoying what you're doing with Unmatched, and I am super duper excited to play more of the cooperative version.
Yeah, from a game that was based on the Star Wars Duels system from way back when. That's what the initial approach was. So Restoration Games is typically taking older games and sort of putting a fresh coat of paint, maybe, you know, upping the strategic value a little bit. And they've really branched out with later sets of the Unmatched stuff where there are some really interesting mechanics going on, or mechanisms.
So Jerry, you have a game that stood out to you?
Well, I think just like Mike did, why don't you talk about anticipated, or, you know, you talked about the game you played. Were there any anticipated games that really struck your fancy?
Not really. Honestly, I didn't see much more than what I played. Like, I wasn't, you know, the only other one that really stood out to me was Thunder Road, Vendetta, which, you know, we hadn't played. So no, there wasn't anything. I mean, I guess Borderlands is the one, if I had to think of anything, but I didn't even do much investigating of what's going on. I mean, it's cool to me that they have a random loot deck where a bunch of different loot cards where, you know, you get to loot whatever and I guess sell it and, you know, try to level up and kill a bunch of stuff. The thing that doesn't excite me about that one is that it's an arena game. I know from experience, having designed arena games, that you can do cool stuff with it. I just don't know that I've seen too many people do too many cool things with it that keep it dynamic enough that make it as interesting as something like Borderlands is to me, where you're running around doing other stuff. I guess they're just going to simulate like the boss fight part of Borderlands, which is kind of an arena battle. Like you're kind of stuck in this one small area. So either way, though, I do like the Borderlands IP. So I guess of the things I didn't get to play and didn't even really hear much about the mechanics, sure, I'll go with Borderlands for that.
All right. So for me, like I had said before, this was a little bit of different Gen Con in that I didn't spend a whole lot of time in the vendor hall, which is usually I like to go and explore and see things that I didn't expect to find. But consequently, I only purchased 3 games at Gen Con, which is unusual for me. But I got the War of the Ring, the card game expansion Against the Shadow. That's the solo co-op expansion. I only played like a round of that. I got Age of Innovation, which is the latest game in the Terra Mystica / Gaia project vein. Haven't played that yet either, but looked like it had some interesting twists on it. And then I got the Thunder Road Maximum Chrome Edition, which we did get to play at the con we talked about earlier. As far as my game of the con, the game I played that I thought was the best was definitely, like Peter, the Unmatched Adventures Tales to Amaze. That was really, really good. Just the variety in the enemy and the minions and the way the various decks worked and the different focus each minion had. Plus, whenever we turned over a card that the minion reshuffle card that had 0 attack and 0 defense, we were all like, yay! So that was good. We had a really good time with that one. So I'm looking forward to having that one ship hopefully in a couple months.
And we played that 4-player. I think that's what stands out to me about that one. Like, usually, when Mike and I review games, half the time you'll hear us say, yeah, but I wouldn't want to play it 4-player, right? Because there's so much downtime or whatever else. This just went really smooth, really quickly. I mean, again, it's only one game, but we played 4-player, and I was never bored.
No, I thought it played 4 very well. And I think it would play at lower player counts. At least, I think it would be fine at 3. I don't know. The way they scale is the number of minions and the overall health of the main enemy are reduced by the number of players. I'm assuming that works, but at least as far as like downtime and active participation, I thought 4 was fine for Tales to Amaze.
And even if two-player
interrogate you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, even if 2-player doesn't work great, you just play 2-handed. You each play 2 characters, right?
Yeah, I mean you could.
And then it would be 4, and that would be fine. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so I'm the only one who didn't play this, and I think easily the biggest fan of this type of game out of the 3 of us. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
And I've always found, well, not always. I mean, I've only played it a couple, maybe 2 or 3 times. I found the unmatched system to be far more boring to me than most competing systems. Like comparing it to both like head-to-head battlers, like, I don't know, Exceed or something, or like more kind of skirmish games like Summoner Wars. I'd rather play many games than Unmatched. But Jerry and Peter, you've played competitive Unmatched. Did you feel like the solo co-op was like a different beast than the regular Unmatched? Or was it kind of more of the same, but just like you could do it solo co-op? Like, did it kind of do cool new things with the system?
Well, when was the last time you played Unmatched?
I borrowed it from you like 2 months ago.
Which set, though?
I don't know. One of whatever you had. Like, I think I borrowed set number like 2, like season 2 or something like that. I think
because depending on which ones you played, like they got progressively more interesting in the design space, basically.
Sure.
So they bring in new concepts that at the very beginning it was a little bit vanilla, maybe. I mean, they still had their own concepts. Like Sinbad had the whole, how many cards you have in your discard of a certain type, that sort of thing. There were things there. But they've gotten a lot more interesting, I think, as time has gone on. Like with the Marvel, they added tokens that if you go, you can do special actions and things like that.
Well, but to be clear, I find the core system boring because there aren't... Like, I found movement and attacking very dull because there aren't Like, so some games will have objectives, like Peter said, or some games will have other things going on. And this one I found, like, often the kind of movement and attacking and just, like, getting into range and getting out of range to be, like, a little bit uninteresting to me.
Well, it's different. It's different because it's AI, right? Because
sure,
when you think about how a player plays, you're gonna walk up to each other and attack, right? And then the other person
Right.
gets 2 attacks. Then you would get 2 attacks, and somebody's gonna run out of cards, and you run away. The AI is
Right.
always moving around. The AI is always like attacking. The AI is always finding things to do. It's to me, it was more puzzly. And I think the new sets do a little bit of this too. The reason, this sticks out to me is they had a puzzle every day that was set up, and it's like, how do you kill this guy in 1 turn, right? And so with the limited cards you have, and like a lot of them let you draw cards from your discard or from your deck or whatever else, like you kind of had to figure out like different puzzles, and they gave away like foil cards if you figured out the puzzle each day. So they weren't easy puzzles. And I think it's become more of that, but I do think the AI is more interesting because they're always moving and attacking and forcing you to move around the board and forcing you to do things that you wouldn't want to do traditionally.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
I do think there's other aspects to it as well that you wouldn't find in 1v1
Sure.
version of Unmatched. Like, for example, the different minions attack you in different ways. So, for example, I was running low on health because I had been getting hit by the blob, because the blob generally attacks your health, right?
Okay.
So I needed to, I could have run up and attacked the blob, but the blob was about to kill me. So I ran away from the blob and attacked somebody else. Like one of the other minions, the Jersey Devil, attacks you more by, it can do damage to you, but it also makes you discard cards from your deck. So you run a risk of getting decked, basically. Well, I had plenty, some other people have been hit by the Jersey Devil and were lower on cards. Well, I was fine on cards, so I could run up to the Jersey Devil and attack and be all right while running away from the blob that could potentially kill me, and then somebody else could go in and get to the blob. So the different minions and how they attack and those different aspects, I thought it was really interesting, and it really gave you had to put some thought behind what you were going to do. It wasn't just simply run up and smack them and then try to get out of range kind of thing.
Well, it's like a lot of these games too, right? Where you're like trying to group up on one guy first to take out that minion, so that way you have less activations against you, right? So it's trying to figure out tactically how to work together, and then they're also laying tokens down all over the board that are like plus damage or stop your movement. So the minions had some interesting puzzly nature to them as well. The other thing that I typically don't like about Unmatched is the battle of wits, the Vincini, like I clearly cannot choose the wine in front of you, right? Like I don't like that in games.
Like
I know
which defense are you going to use, that kind of stuff. Sure.
Right. And there is a little bit of that, right? Like in this, but you're not trying to outthink the AI, of course. You're just thinking, all right, if I play this, how bad could it be, right? Like if the AI play, because you kind of get to know their decks pretty well. They only had like 10 cards in the AI decks. They just shuffle pretty regularly. So you're like, all right, I haven't seen this card yet. All right, maybe I have to worry about this. So there's a little bit of that, but a lot of times it's just like, all right, I'm going to play my card. Hopefully I get lucky. And then when you do, you know how like in co-op games, the most exciting moments are the moments you're not expecting? Here, it's like they have a lot of good cards, but when you get that 0 card, it's like literally zeros across the board. And the only thing it says is like shuffle up their deck again. And like you like needed that 0 card. Like all the moments are exciting that happen. Otherwise, you're just expecting them to block, 3 or 4 damage or whatever else. But like when you get that 0 or when you do get that big turn, it's super exciting. So I do think there are some things here that people who don't necessarily like the competitive Unmatched would like. But it's not a new game, right? No. What you're doing on your turn is exactly the same as what you would be doing. Just the considerations might be different. And other people who are better than me at the game might already be considering these things every time they play the game anyway, from turn to turn. And maybe it's just more obvious to me in when it's in the co-op mode.
Yeah. And because you can play these co-op characters in the regular Unmatched, and you can play regular Unmatched characters in the co-op, obviously the general mechanics are the same. So if you didn't like the mechanics of Unmatched, this isn't going to change your mind. It's definitely more thinky.
I think everything Peter said and what you said, Jerry, sound really good to me. Because I just needed like some kind of reason to have more to think about, I think. And it sounds like that's exactly what this provides. So that sounds great. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think some of the later sets that were the versus mode are a lot more interesting than maybe the ones that you played.
I mean, I'm not going to go along with you for that yet. Because you let me borrow one of the later sets. It wasn't like the first stuff.
Well, Volume 2 wasn't one of the later sets.
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, yeah, I've also
maybe
heard from people on our Discord that some of the Marvel sets are like totally unbalanced or terrible. Like a couple of them, at least. I forget which ones exactly. Like I think it was maybe like the Luke Cage one or something like that, which is like a mess, at least according to them. So I've heard mixed things about the Marvel sets as well.
I mean, I've played 2 of the 3 Luke Cage heroes, and I haven't had any problems. But
I mean, it might not have been that.
Other people are way more
that's...
experienced at the game than I am, and I'm just having fun with it, right? Like I've just really enjoyed what I've done. They didn't seem unbalanced, but maybe I just got really lucky matchups too. You know how that can work sometimes.
Sure.
So the other game that I really enjoyed that I played was Thunder Road, or at least new game that I played was Thunder Road with the we played with the Chop Shop expansion, which is the individual leaders with special powers and individual powers on each of your vehicles. I enjoyed that a lot more than I thought I was going to. I had gotten a little bit of a taste. I watched them demo it a little bit at the Restoration Games booth. So I was definitely interested, and I'd seen it before at Origins, I think, years ago. But anyway, it is definitely managed chaos. It's a lot of fun. You have cars die on turn 2, and that's just the way the game goes. So
yep,
had a lot of fun with that. Look forward to playing with my kids a bit. So as far as most anticipated game, I didn't actually get to see this in person, but based on the theme and what Mike has said about it, I'm really interested in Horror on the Orient Express. I'm a Call of Cthulhu fan, and the theme is right up my alley. And if it's a good co-op game, I'm all for it.
Man, y'all are both all about Restoration Games.
I guess I'm my publisher of the con this time. But
yeah, I would love to really enjoy a game of theirs. I never have so far. But I've only played. Well, no, okay, that's wrong. I really like Downforce, but that's the only game of theirs that they didn't change at all, right?
I don't know if they changed that or not.
They just like.
I like Stop Thief, the one they did.
Yeah, no, Stop Thief was a little bit okay.
But that's because I was
Dark Tower. I liked like half of it. I think parts of it are awesome.
Oh, I like Dark Tower. That was fun.
What else have we played of theirs? Yeah, Unmatched have been mixed on. But Thunder Road looks fun. I'm sure my kids would enjoy it too. So
you could have played, but no.
I wanted to play with lots of people. But yes, I'd like to play that with you guys, maybe at the next game night or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we got Saturday night, tomorrow night. We could play that. We could play. What was the other one?
Isn't today Thursday?
Yeah.
Today's Thursday.
Peterson.
Dang it,
dude! I'm back at school on Monday. Don't take away my days from me.
Yeah, I got 2 meetings tomorrow. I got an 8:30 and a 4 p.m. on a Friday. It's wonderful.
So that's why Peter wishes it was already Saturday.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. All right. So yeah, Saturday night we could play that, and we could play. What was the other one we were just talking about? None of you guys talked about it too much. Yeah, Age of Innovation. I want to try that because I love.
No, that's all you and Jerry. I'm not gonna play.
Oh, come on! You'll love it, Mike. It's a Euro.
I mean, I like Gaia Project, but I also don't want to play Gaia Project with y'all. I want to play that solo and take my time.
All right. Well, that pretty much sums it up. But thanks for joining us, everybody, and we will see you all next week for episode 400 of the podcast. Mike and I will be recording live on. Well, at least hopefully, recording live on the streaming channel. I do have to figure out how to put audio clips in so I could play them and have us both hear them while we were recording and try to respond to them. So we will see how that works out. That'll be a week of learning to try to figure that out.
I always love how Peter says, and we're going to be doing this. And Mike's like, oh, we are?
I just show up for the podcast if I vaguely know it.
Is that what we're doing?
Yes. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, and we will see you soon. Episode 399 out.
Bye.
Hey, guys.
Yes, Peter.
Why do the Irish only put 239 beans in their casserole or stew or...
Why?
If they put in one more, it'd be too farty.
God.